Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at another Tuesday night slate here in the NBA playoffs, Nate. We are going to kick things off with the Eastern Conference. Game 5, the Heat looking to close out the Hawks back in Miami for this one. So we will be taking a look at some of the best bets and a few player props. As always, make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We're going to continue to bring you each and every single playoff game with a game video here, as well as that player props video that we'll bring you for each of these days that we have playoff games as well. Definitely want to make sure you're liked and subscribed to continue following along there. Also want to head to thelines.com. That is where we have our awesome odds checker out there for you when you guys are shopping those lines, making it really easy for you to find the best odds available on all the bets you want to make tonight. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to FDPicks.com or DKPicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, Hawks are plus 7.5 now after getting rolled at home. Miami expected to close this thing out. Total is 217 down there in South Beach. And then two other games, pretty much the same spread here. Plus 6.5 for the underdogs, the Wolves, despite pulling out a win over Memphis in game 4. Totals at 232 there, which seems to be exactly where it was last game. And then the Pelicans, after really just controlling the Suns to even that series, are also plus 6.5 as we go back to Phoenix. Total, again, seems pretty low for that one at 215. We like the over at 216 in the last game and definitely hit. All right. So Hawks Heat. I mean, this was a pretty surprising just in how far from being close it was. We thought that Trae Young would find a little more success with Kyle Lowry out of the lineup, but it turns out that it's Miami's just overall scheme that just baffles him. And not only they shut down Trae, they shut down Bogdanovic, who we thought would be left open the way they were doubling Trae and cutting him off. Bogey and Herter combined 2 for 11 from 3. The team, again, a terrible assist to turnover ratio for the Hawks, 18-15, while the Heat go 22 and 6 turnovers, and also outscore the Hawks 48-26 in the paint. It's exactly the scenario that you'd expect from a team that's bigger, stronger, tougher, and more seasoned in the playoffs. And they did definitely respond from losing on almost a buzzer beater in game 3. Now it's looking like a gentleman's sweep. Question is, are the Heat going to cover 7? I think that's definitely possible. I think if you are at all concerned about this turning into a close one because Atlanta doesn't lay down, I feel slightly more confident about the Heat holding Atlanta under that team total of 105 again, which they did by a pretty wide margin in both of these home games to start the series, than I would the Heat covering 7 points. I don't think that that's out of the question, though, with the Hawks 6-20 against the spread as road dogs this season. That's the worst in the NBA. Trae Young's struggles have been worse in Miami. We talked over and over. The reason we kind of liked the Hawks in game 4 is because of those home road splits and now on the road where they average 5.5 more turnovers per game. It's not looking good. And that Heat defense, the reason we like under 105, they allow the second fewest paint points at home, the second lowest assist to turnover ratio, and the 6th lowest 3-point percentage. And that's, where else are the Hawks going to score? I mean, they don't have much of a mid-range game other than Gallo. I don't think he's going to carry you. He is not that dude anymore. And they scored 52% of their points off threes in game 4 to even have some sort of respectability. I mean, they have 81 points in the middle of the fourth quarter. Yeah. So as long as Miami's locked in like this, which they basically have been since Jimmy and Spoelstra got into that spat, they're kind of banged up with Lowry and Bam out. I don't think they're going to mess around in closing out this series. So lots of different ways to back them to just win and probably cover that 7-point spread. But I would lean towards their defense being the reason why they win.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you're fair to take either the Hawks under 105.5 or you're fair to just take the Heat to win by 7. I'm fine with that. I think they're winning by double digits. They have, in every win they have, they've won by double digits. And, the only reason they lost the game that they lost, to be honest, is they lost the turnover battle, which the team who wins the turnover battle in this series so far has won every game. It was a really, really bad. They lost by 1 point, despite having 18 turnovers in that game. But it's just such a huge discrepancy between how they play, in terms of the outcome of their games when they don't turn the ball over versus when they do. I know it sounds super simple, but it's actually more important for them than most teams, because of the couple of things. One, their defense on their second unit just isn't the same as the defense that has, Bam and Jimmy on the floor at the same time, and Kyle Lowry, et cetera. So as a result, they really do need to keep the ball in their hands because they are giving up a bit more points from their bench. Their bench didn't score in game 4. It was terrible. And it's been the best scoring bench all season, obviously led by 6th man of the year, likely, winner Tyler Hero there, just scoring. So, the only reason it's not leading in the playoffs this time is because now Steph Curry's coming off the bench for Golden State, skewing all those numbers, but they're still, in the top 3 in the playoffs. And yeah, I think that's my point there is they didn't even have that last game. And they didn't turn the ball over and they were fine. So I think they're going to continue that, not beat themselves in this one. I agree with you. They don't need Kyle Lowry to come back in this one. They should be just fine. I kind of mentioned to you in the last game video, he's not even really the guy guarding Trae Young, right? It's definitely more of a team effort for the Heat in terms of making sure that he's done, because they are just getting the ball out of his hands right away, as we talked about last video, so that they don't even really need to worry about if he's going to be getting around screens or not. And at this point, Clint Capella came back. He did his best, man. He tried, but it's just not there for him right now. He played 20 minutes and then obviously wasn't able to do much to get 7 boards, but just a result of being 7 feet tall and standing down there on those defensive rebounds. And yeah, I think, like I said, the guys shutting down Trae Young at this point are Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, and a little bit of Jimmy in there, but mostly those 2 guys are spending most of the time on there. But like I said, there's always another guy right there on at the top of the key next to them waiting. And I think that's the continued strategy. Trae now, not only has he been really bad against Atlanta, as we've talked about, in his last 10 versus them, which is a large sample size, obviously 20 points a game under his average by about 6 points in that time span, 7 assists, 4 boards, but 6 turnovers a game, shooting 28% from 3, not getting to the free throw line like he does, only about he had 1 attempt last game and missed it. So, you also, last thing for him in those elimination games that he played last season, 17.5 points, 9.5 assists, also 4.5 turnovers in that time. But, at 39 minutes, he's shooting 9 for 40 and 2 for 17 from 3. He didn't show up in either of those games. The reason they beat Philly was because Kevin Huerter came out of nowhere to make a name for himself, and earned himself a nickname. So I think that's a continued strategy here, is under their points, because they don't have Trae, which is the engine. And as we say, a walking NBA offense. But if he's not bringing it for them, DeAndre Hunter's 24 points was really nice in game 4. It's just not close to what their need, how they play and who they need to be scoring to win this game.
No, I think Miami's funneling those points towards Hunter, and they're totally fine with that.
Right.
If they're going to be able to hold Young and Bogey in check, then they know they're going to win. And I don't hate the overall under here. I don't think Miami's offense is necessarily going to erupt, but maybe you need to tease it up to 221, which is where it's been all series, and that's why all 4 games have gone under. The one Atlanta won was very, very close, but we're expecting lower scoring in Miami. They're 6-5 to the under at home since the start of March, and those games averaging 216, just a shade under this total. You just look at the short rest here as a 1 day off turnaround, and Atlanta was, 6-10 against the spread on no rest or short rest, if whatever you want to call that, if you want to draw that parallel. And they went 22-13 to the under as dogs on the season, and they've gone under in 6 straight playoff games and play-in games here, as that, which more just speaks to their offense performing below expectations. They close out the regular season with one of the best offensive ratings. We think they're just scoring at an efficient clip, and then they get into a dogfight right away against maybe the scariest defensive team in the playoffs. And all of a sudden it just flatlines that offense. So I wouldn't look towards the Hawks to put up a lot of points here. I wouldn't look towards the Heat lapse on their defensive prowess here after they handled business to get this 3-1 lead. I think they take care of it. They put the clamps on and hold that Hawks offense in check once again.
Yeah, and if you think that, like I said, then you're really talking Trae Young unders. We don't have his props up as we record this the morning before on Monday, but we do, I do expect them to be, 26 and a half, 27 and a half points for Trae. I think you can go under there. I think for Jimmy, I want to see what he's got, but I mean, look, he's averaging 30 in the series at this point in 37 minutes. Yeah, Jimmy, his per 36 numbers are right there in those 37 minutes a game he's getting anyway. So, 30 points, 8 boards, 5 assists. Got to like that. His 44 splits with a 34% usage. So that individual offensive rating above 120, 8.5 free throw attempts a game. Everything that he wants to do, if you drew up what are the keys to success for Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat, in this series, everything he's doing is exactly what they need. All right, Nate, second game on the slate here on Tuesday night in the playoffs. We've got Minnesota. They are headed back to Memphis with the Grizzlies, and it is tied after they did pull that win out there in game 4, and they needed every bit of it by winning by just 1 point there. So, we're coming back home. You mentioned Ja maybe sandbagging them, 15 dimes, but only 11 points. Maybe he's coming back with a vengeance in this one. Not too much to love, I would say, in the series at this point, unless you felt so good about maybe, one of these. If you feel good about Minnesota winning the series, then there's a couple of things you could take. But if you still feel like Memphis is pulling this one out, really not much left for them in terms of winning the series or even guessing the games correctly to get some juice there. So I think, I'm really just focused on this game. Probably the total is where I start. I do think this series is going 7. I said that at the jump, and I'm not going to change it now at 2-2. It only seems more likely. I do like, I think it's probably a matter of the home teams winning out. And I know we're definitely looking at the game theory that we started to talk about before the last game 4 video that we did, where we talk about Memphis preferring that slow pace for them to win, Minnesota preferring that fast pace for them to win. What do you think? I guess it's essentially, if that's the case, which one of those prevails in game 5 is the question, right?
Well, we actually talked about that in game 2 when we were still in Memphis. And yeah, sure enough, Memphis held them to about 84 points and smashed for a win. I think this one will be a lot closer after the Wolves had those hot starts in those 2 home games. Memphis came clawing back, but I'm definitely still leaning towards Memphis. I said Ja was sandbagging in terms of his post-game comments, just kind of leaning on his knee as an excuse. I'm not Ja right now, he said. I don't have my explosive, So if he's calculating enough, I don't know if he's a veteran and savvy enough to be doing that stuff, but maybe then Minnesota, it lays off him a little bit, thinking he's not going to attack the rim, and then he does. Either way, I like his prop for the 10 assists in a win at plus 150 because he did have 15 dimes, and Minnesota allows a healthy amount of dimes. But that's not saying I think this is going to be an offensive explosion. Like I said, I'm sticking to the theory that got us unders in the previous 2 games, that Memphis can limit what Minnesota does. And they got a bit unlucky, a combination of both teams shooting 50% from 3. That's very unlucky if you had bet the under, because Memphis is not a good 3-point shooting team, and they are a good 3-point defense. And then Cat coming out to play after getting, his name dragged through the mud after 2 terrible games. Career high, playoff high, 33 points and 17 free throw attempts, really just attack from jump. Memphis will have a better plan for slowing him down. They allowed 21 free throw attempts on the season at home, and they gave up 40 in that game on the road. I don't think those free points will be there for Minnesota. Just looking at the correlation, though, in the wins for Memphis, the Wolves shot under 40%. The pace was 99. They hit 11.5 threes. In the wins, they shot 49%, 17 threes, 103 pace. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, look, we slow it down. If we limit their good looks from 3, Minnesota's less comfortable playing in the half court than us, even, and that being Memphis, because they can still get their points in the paint at a little slower pace, and they can hopefully preserve Ja. But the reason I lean Memphis in a close game, I really think there's 2 scenarios here, Josh. I think they can either blow them out like they did in game 2 if Minnesota's not hitting, or if Cat is not on the same level of intensity that he was in that bounce back effort. But if it is a close game, I mean, the last two fourth quarters have completely belonged to Memphis. And one of those was that huge comeback. So, of course, the numbers are a little bloated, but we're talking about a 62 plus net rating. We're talking about the best rebounding team in the league posting a 72% rebounding rate. So good luck getting a second chance shot. And again, with the pace, 93, slowing it down the stretch and getting us under, even if it looks like, you might be able to live bet and under 240 if it looks like they're going back and forth a lot. Memphis, was elite in the clutch at home, down the stretch, of course, a limited sample size, but a 54 defensive rating after the All-Star break in those few close games. And both these teams have struggled to take care of the ball, bottom 5 in assist to turnover ratio in the playoffs right now. Mm-hmm. So it's really about the pace. If it's not up there, they're not efficient enough on offense to get you to a 235 total or whatever we're talking about here. As might not surprise you, but I like a teaser here. Memphis down to -2, get that under up to 236. I feel pretty good about the correlation there. But if you do like the better juice, the Memphis money line with the regular under is plus 150. I think it's worth sprinkling some on both of those, since that's the game theory we're rolling with here.
Yeah, I think we do. You got to go with it, and I do. I do like the home team to come out and win this game. But yeah, I'm still scared of a hot start for Minnesota. They just seem to come out in pretty much every game now, except for game 2. They've come out just with on a tear, essentially, right? And I think they're still going to be equally as hungry as Memphis in this one. It's 2-2. There's no edge there and anybody necessarily playing for their lives, although you could make the argument that Memphis doesn't want to go back to Minnesota down 3-2 more than, Minnesota would be scared of that, obviously playing back at home and where they play better on offense, where they need that pace to be high. Neither of these teams have been efficient on offense. Outside of Desmond Bane, nobody's been efficient on offense. 8 for 12 from 3, following is 7 for 16 or whatever it was in the game before. He's continuing to carry them. And I think, to a degree, maybe Ja isn't himself, but he's also has to have recognized that Desmond Bane is on another planet right now and can't miss. Right. So I think, what we're looking for in this one is I do want to buy into the theory. I mean, we believe it strongly that Memphis will win with slowing that pace down. I mean, it's wild that there was a 104 pace in the game in game 4. And that last quarter was played at a pace of 92. And I think part of that is, they had to actually go. We talked about the lineup that was so good for them in game 3 that really helped them win and come back. Brandon Clark being a huge catalyst for that. He did play 28 minutes in this game 4. And really, Jaren Jackson wasn't able to play once again because of foul trouble. Not shockingly, stop me if you've heard that before. Only played 3 minutes in the fourth quarter. And you look at who was out there most of the time. Brandon Clark obviously played 10. And then you had Kyle Anderson playing 6 minutes as well. So, between those guys, sprinkle in some Tyus Jones when they went smaller than even that. But the point is even if they, the best lineup they had so far, which I was talking about, was with Jaren Jackson, Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bane, Ja, and then Brandon Clark. You also talk about take out Brandon Clark, put Kyle Anderson in there. Either way, what we're talking about is 2 guys who are going to either not shoot threes or not shoot them nearly quick enough, as Kyle Anderson takes a year and a half to load up his 3 before he can shoot it. Thusly, he doesn't get that many attempts. It's not that he's not good at making them. It's that it takes too damn long for him to get the shot off. So he and Brandon Clark, both are going to continue to not combine for too many threes, which is okay if you're trying to slow the ball down and if you trust your half court offense a bit, which they should against a Minnesota team that continues to struggle on defense in a variety of ways, giving up a ton of open shots. I think you look at why Memphis was so good from 3 in that game. There were a ton of open threes for them. It's not like they were hitting a ton of those the contested shots, but still 8 for 12 from Dylan Brooks or from Desmond Bane, 3 for 4 from Dylan Brooks, 2 for 3 from Tyus Jones. Some of that has to regress back to normal, right? And I think that's something you can expect in this one. And they won't rely on threes in this one. And the under is what I feel good about because I do feel good about them. And I think I'm going to just go straight parlay in terms of their money line and the under in this one.
Mm-hmm. And if you agree with Josh that you think the Wolves can come out strong again, there is a first quarter winner and then match winner. So the Wolves to win the first quarter and then the Grizzlies to win the game. Plus 330 again, yeah, Memphis is that kind of team. We've seen it in those 2 wins in games 2 and 3, that they might start slow with their offense, and then they kind of smile at the thought of coming back and sticking it to the Wolves. So I don't hate that. I don't hate the Memphis team total for the first half either, against the Wolves team that gives up 60 points per game in that first half. I'm just saying that the total, the pace should slow down enough down the stretch that we get to the under there. And look, if you are still on the Wolves, the correlation goes the other way. And if you think they're going to win, I'm almost sure that it's going to be because this game goes over 232, and that's plus 500. So there is juice either way. You bet it. It's just, you have to think about the correlations here. It's like, what's going to happen if Minnesota wins? And Minnesota's not going to win a 109-107 game, but Memphis could. That's just our opinion. I mean, it's based on heavily rooted in fact that Minnesota scores about 120 in wins and 107 in losses. So I think, we stick with that theory, and it should pay out over the course of the series.
Yeah, and it has up to this point, and I agree. It will continue. It's a fluctuating series. It's definitely the wildest one, the most all over the place. It's one where you really have to, like, what we're doing here is going, all right, well, there's 2 to 3 plausible scenarios, and then there's a couple that aren't plausible. Like you said, not plausible to us, a 110 to 105 Minnesota win doesn't seem like it's going to happen. A 105 to 101 win, not really in Minnesota's sort of wheelhouse there. But yeah, 127 to 124, straight in their wheelhouse, and that's exactly what they're looking for. So you have to realize that with Memphis. I'm not saying Steven Adams is going to get any minutes. I'm saying Slow-Mo is going to get his 25 to 30 minutes, as well as Brandon Clark. I think Triple J, while I think they like his defense, and he's obviously their best option to guard Cat, who did have another nice game, because in part, at least, because Triple J couldn't be on the floor. There's still the propensity for him to shoot threes a lot more than Brandon Clark and Kyle Anderson, and be open in those 3-ball spots, which 1 for 4 for the series. I believe he's shooting like 12% from 3, Triple J. So like, if no one's willing to pull him, at least there's not as many long rebound misses, which just leads to a bunch more Minnesota long rebounds and going and pushing. So I think it all looks like under, for if you do believe Memphis will control this game properly, and those role players will come to play at home as they normally do. All right, Nate, the last game on the slate here on Tuesday night is the probably most surprising one so far. I mean, Devin Booker being out for the Suns in this Pelicans-Suns series that's going back to Phoenix, tied 2-2 in a 1 versus technically 9 matchup here for the Pelicans. I think, we say surprising, but Devin Booker being out wasn't expected. And I think if Devin Booker was in this series, that this is a little bit different, and probably at least 3-1, right? In this one, there's a lot to look at. There was plenty to see in game 4 that has you feeling good about the Pellies. My main thing is, can Chris Paul hold an offense by himself by scoring and getting assists? Because he needs to get a lot more than, the 14 points a game he's averaging so far for them to win this series. We've got a 6.5 line in favor of Phoenix right now, with a 215.5 total or so. I have listed here on DraftKings for both of those. So I guess what do you do with that? It seems like that's too high for in terms of the spread there. After we just saw the Suns struggle so much on offense against those Pelicans.
Yeah, it's too high. I mean, although you are talking about a completely different atmosphere that the Pelicans clearly fed off a rabid crowd. And when you talk about winning the hustle plays, winning the free throw battle, which Monty Williams definitely wanted to point out post game, 42-15 for the Pelicans. Not that that's unexpected, when Phoenix was 27th in free throw attempts this year, and the Pels allowed the second most points off free throws on the road. So I don't think it's going to really change. I mean, the second lowest percentage of their points off free throws. So that doesn't really indicate it's going to change tonight. But I think the offensive efficiency down the stretch is what I'm looking at. I like the over again. Even though Phoenix didn't come along, we went over by 5 points in game 4, and now back home. I know they did tend to go under after a loss this season, They also tend to cover and win, or win by 8.5 points per game. But I mean, it's time to start talking about how the Suns' regular season reflects in the playoffs, and how Chris Paul, what we saw 2 years ago with OKC, excellent team against the spread, fizzled out completely in the playoffs because they had that intensity up all season. They didn't have another notch to go to. And I've always been scratching my head at people saying, like, the Suns, can anyone beat the Suns in the playoffs? Like, is it their championship to win? I'm like, I don't understand those odds, those future odds. I mean, yes, it's an easy road in the West, easier, but this team does not seem unbeatable by any means. They just had a really good regular season where they were consistently clutch down the stretch because they had two closers, and now they only have one, and he's getting hounded all over the floor and getting put in every action on defense. So CP3, though, I do trust to bounce back after a playoff career low 4 points. And if he does, he's still diming people up, right? Ayton and McGee went 37 points on 18 for 21 field goal shooting, scoring down low consistently. That's how Phoenix does score, Monty, not at the free throw line. And NOLA is now allowing 64% of their points off twos in the series. And that's consistent with what they were on the season, 8th highest percentage of points off twos all season down low. So, going into that game 4, both these teams had a 137 offensive rating in the fourth quarter. New Orleans passed Phoenix. Now they're 140 in the last 3, and Phoenix dropped a little bit because, they had their bench out there in the fourth quarter at that point. But the way the Pellies are scoring, the whole second half, they're shooting 48% from 3. In that fourth quarter, they're shooting 50% from 3. Brandon Ingram, 33.7 points per game the last 3 at a 139 offensive rating. And Phoenix can't afford to just put a stopper out there and try to play Torrey Craig and sacrifice their offense. Like, they're going to need Mikal to try to guard Ingram one-on-one and find them some offense on the other end. So I like the over. Again, this is a Pelicans team that is tough to guard. Since they got those two guys together, CJ and Ingram, it's not like the Suns can just put the clamps on like we saw in some of their playoff games last year, or like we saw a lot of times during the regular season. I mean, look, New Orleans went under in 8 of their last 11 road games during the regular season, but those games averaged 231, and we're talking about a 215 total. So I think that it's fine to just take the over, and there's different ways that it can get you there. Maybe Phoenix does have that avalanche, feeds off the home crowd, and they score 120. But maybe just as likely, the Pelicans continue to fight, and we're scoring around 115 both teams. So you can just take that spread, or you can tease it up to plus 10 with the Pels. That's the direction I would prefer to tease, because I don't know, Phoenix is in trouble here without one of their most vital players, to say the least, and without the versatility you might need in this particular series to both guard those two guys and to be able to score on the other end.
Yeah, man, it's not looking great for the Suns in a lot of ways, to be honest. It's definitely not looking great, just specifically relative to how great it was looking for them before this series started. I think there's a couple of things to look at. One, what we were talking about earlier. First of all, I agree with you in the over. Let me just say that out front, like, that is my favorite bet for sure. I think I've also been, following what we've been saying in the last 3 Suns games, where in the middle of that third quarter, I look at what the, what the total is literally at 6 minutes in the third quarter of the last 3 games. Just look at what the total is and go, yeah, sure, that sounds good. 75 points in the next, 12, 16 minutes or whatever, 18 minutes, like, sounds good. Yeah, these teams are so insanely efficient offense. They scored 63 points in the fourth quarter of this last game. So it's what I look at is, CP3 would like to slow this game down a bit, obviously, and just get chippy with it and sort of do his thing. Problem is that half court offense with Ingram and CJ McCollum, and even throw Joval in there, is filthy right now. Like, absolutely filthy. And it's been that way since the last 10 games that they've all been playing together, where they finally all came back from any kind of injuries, specifically BI, and came back healthy in those last 10. They have 121 offensive rating, 118 defensive rating, because they're definitely not defensive stoppers by any means. But I don't think there's anybody that can stop Brandon Ingram right now. And that's scary to say because they've got Jay Crowder on him for most of the game. He's cooking him. He's also cooking Torrey Craig. So to your point, if Craig's not going to be hitting threes, then there's nothing for him to be doing. There's no reason for him to be out there. Then the other thing is they don't have a sub for Devin Booker. Like Cam Johnson ain't it because right now he's posting a 137 defensive rating individually. So they really can't keep him on the floor. And then Landry Shamit's coming in and actually doing a bit better, but also has his own 135 individual defensive rating. So they're getting cooked right now, man. And whomever, like between Jay Crowder and Mikal, Mikal's got his own problems at 100 in this last game, 125 individual because CJ was cooking on him. And CJ wasn't even really scoring that much, but he was getting to his spots and really controlling the tempo of the offense. And it's not like there's any weird things. There's no weirdness and outlandish stats and outliers for what, the Pelicans are doing to win. They're not hitting a barrage of threes more so than they would normally. They only went 6 for 24 from three. They got to the line a decent amount. Obviously the 42 attempts were talked about. That's more than a decent amount, but they're going to the basket. Like you said, Monty, I don't know if you know this, but your team doesn't go to the free throw line because they shoot mid-range shots all over the place. And even DeAndre Ayton, who's your center, is shooting power forward style, elbow jumpers, but more than he's, really backing anybody down and getting into the paint that much. They did score a good amount of their points from the paint in game 3, which really helped them because DA really maintained his dominance throughout the game. And we still maintain that he's doing really well, but he's doing well in part because CP3 is getting him to his spots. But the problem is CP3 putting up the points needs to happen at this point. I'm actually going to bet on that. I'm going to look for these player props and I'm going to hit CP3 probably either points and assists, points, rebounds and assists, just CP3 bets. I think this is, what he's shown us in the last couple of years, even when he was with Houston, is if you put his back against the wall, he's now a playoff performer. And that was definitely the case last year. And I want to continue to put my money on that as it hit pretty well in last year's playoff scores with Chris Paul.
Yeah, legacy game right here. I mean, for CP3, to say the least. And I don't think Jose Alvarado being a pest is going to stop him from getting his. It didn't in game 3 when he had 28 points, 14 assists. He'll adjust. The officials will adjust. I mean, Monty, he knows that, of course. He knows what his team does. He's just trying to game it a little bit, add those comments and hope to get a few more calls and make it easier for Ayton and McGee to keep doing what they've been doing down in the paint without getting banged up. If they continue to attack, they will probably get a few more calls at home, to say the least. The Suns, I mean, they went under in 5 straight home games before this series started, but they went over in 5 straight playoff home games last year. They went 7-3 against the spread in the playoffs, of course. I mean, you had Booker out there, though, to be the winner there. But the point is that their defense was not as lights out as you might expect when you have guys that are a problem, like Giannis in 3 of those 5 overs, and Brandon Ingram is a problem. Like let's be real. There was one play where they put Torrey Craig out there, like, all right, he's out there for his defense. Ingram just went right and go gadget armed, flushed it over his head, and Torrey Craig's supposed to be one of the best individual matchups you could put on the guy. Definitely when you look up and down your roster to stop him from getting to the rim. He couldn't do that at all. I mean, Ingram is a coming out party for him this year and in these playoffs. And with CJ as his Robin when CP3 doesn't have his sidekick, I trust the Pelicans to keep this relatively close and to keep scoring, more importantly, because if we're betting the over, we want CP3 to be doing this with his mid-range reliability in the fourth quarter. We don't want the Suns to be locking up and just running away in the third quarter in some sort of non-competitive affair. Even if they do, though, 215 is still a pretty damn low total.
Yeah, even if you feel like this is somewhat of a blowout for the Suns, which I don't. I think BI is legit. I think he's a big-time performer. He's a big-time scorer. He averages 3 more points per game, almost 2.5 more points per game on the road this season than he does at home, showing his gamerness, or however you want to phrase that, because he doesn't care, right? He takes that on and performs just as well on the road, if not better. So I think he does keep this game. And like you were saying, even if this is a blowout, I don't think it's a blowout because the Pellies get held to 95 points or whatever. Like that's not the style of game that this is. That it just isn't because they can't. Between the two guys that they have, that's enough for them right now. With the added of Joval, Devontae Graham, at least he's a guy who can get hot and shooting a little bit better after coming, trying to come back from injury. You can't expect their role players, not like you said, Jose Alvarado in New Orleans with that crowd, a little bit different than Jose Alvarado in Phoenix guarding Chris Paul, where he's, it's his home turf. So, but I still think over is a play. I'm going to look for some Ingram props as well, as even if they, try to get the ball out of his hands and double him, I think he can shoot over teams. And then you talk about the ancillary stats for him where he can still dime people up and find the open man. So that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. We're going to continue to bring you every single playoff video for each of these games throughout the postseason here, as well as that player props one we'll have for you each and every day. So until we see you next, happy betting.